Today we're using a special type of rice called basmati rice. And this is just a different variety of rice. It's a longer grain than a typical rice. And you can buy it in both the white version and the whole wheat version locally. But obviously, if you're looking for the best health, I would choose the brown rice. Now this takes a little bit of time to cook. So it's best to cook it a little bit in advance of when you want to prepare your turmeric rice. So to get started, I had some issues the first time I was using this recipe. My rice got a little bit too sticky. So in order for that to not happen to you, I have a couple tips to make sure that your rice holds each individual granule very well. And the steps that I learned are, you first want to rinse the rice. So I'm going to just take a bowl and I'm going to pour some water over it. Just to rinse it out really well, and the water's not coming out very well, so we'll turn it. There we go. Just rinse it off really, really well. And I'm actually just going to kind of put it in the water and let it soak for a second. If you have time, the best way to do this is to actually pour the rice into a bowl of water and let it soak for about a half an hour. And what that does is it helps to remove a little bit of the starch from the rice, which is kind of what makes it sticky. So in some rice preparations, it's okay if you have sticky rice, but for this recipe, you really want the rice granules to be very separate. So cooking rice, it's always a 1-to-2 ratio of rice to water. So we have 1 cup of basmati rice, and we're going to use 2 cups of water. And again, if you have a half an hour, let it soak. We don't today, so we're just going to go ahead and pour our rice in. Soaking the rice, what that does is it helps the rice to absorb a little bit of water so that when it comes up to a boil, the granule doesn't split open. And it does that in addition to removing some of the starch. So I'm going to go ahead and pour the rice into the water right now. And just give it a stir. And then you have to wait for the rice to come to a boil. So now that the rice is boiling, we're going to take our glass lid and put that over the pot. And I think it's a huge benefit to have a glass lid because that way I can see inside the pot and see how much water is left, because the goal is to have all of the water be absorbed into the rice. So once you put your lid on, go ahead and reduce your heat to low. And this flame's kind of tricky because it likes to turn off when I turn it too low. Hopefully you don't have that problem at home. So we're going to turn our heat to low, and we're going to let it simmer for about 30 to 45 minutes or until all the liquid is absorbed. Welcome everybody. I'm Andrea Miller, and I'm a registered dietitian and certified diabetes educator here at Community Hospitals and Wellness Centers in Bryan. And I'd like to welcome our live audience and our viewers at home to Live It Spiced. Today I have a special sous chef with me today. I have Vaishali Patel, and she works here at the hospital, and she's a nurse practitioner. She actually does a lot here. She is a nurse practitioner in the cardiology department here, and you also work over at Montpelier Rehab a little bit too.
Yep, a couple days a week I'm there. So.
Lots of different things that you do here at the hospital.
Yes.
And you also love spices.
Yes, I do.
So you are the perfect sous chef for our spiced episode today.
Thank you for having me. So.
And actually, I think this is the first. We're actually using our sous chef's recipe today.
Yeah.
So she actually provided the recipe for our turmeric rice, which I am now in love with, and it's going to be like a weekly item on my home menu. So I'm really excited to have that, and I hope everybody in the audience enjoys it, and maybe you'll try it at home. So we have 3 recipes today that we're doing, and all of these recipes have tons of spices. If you walked into the room today, you probably already thought we were cooking because the spices are just so pungent. You can smell them when you walk into the room. The 3 recipes we're doing today, we talked about the turmeric rice. We're going to do that. And then we have we're calling it a chickpea popper. Or you might call it like a roasted chickpea, putting lots of spices on it. It's great. You could do it as a side dish with this meal as your protein component of the meal, or it's also a really great snack.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say.
So the other recipe we're doing is it's actually a drink. We've never done a beverage on Live It, so we're going to do something that I've really been into for about the past year. I was calling it a latte, but I'm not doing that anymore. I changed the name to change your expectations. We're calling it golden milk, which is a little bit more accurate. It's a spiced golden milk, and it's golden because it has turmeric in it. And I think it's a really nice beverage to do at bedtime. That's how I relax at night. I think everybody kind of has their way that they relax in the evening. The way that I relax is I like to sit down with a beverage. And this time in the winter, I think it's really nice to sit down with a nice warm beverage. But I don't want it to contain a lot of sugar or calories or alcohol. So I find this to be really a nice go-to beverage for that. But you said actually your mother-in-law
she drinks this actually every day. As long as I've been married, like 10 years, and I've seen her drink it every day.
And she does it in the morning though, right?
She does it in the morning. Sometimes if she has like cough, congestion, or anything like that, she'll do it at night as well before she goes to bed. So it helps her.
Absolutely, because the ingredients that we're going to talk about as we make the recipe are really beneficial for overall health. So the thing that I want to drive home today is all of the spices that we're using, we're adding flavor, a ton of flavor to our food without a ton of salt. And it's also, they're really beneficial for your health, all around health. I'm going to talk a little bit about each one of the spices. But I'm just going to cover some, quick ground here. Pretty much all of them are anti-inflammatory and antioxidant. So lots of benefits there. And that's in pretty much all of them. So I'll save some time and just say all of them have anti-inflammatory, antioxidant properties. So let's get started with our chickpeas here real quick. Unfortunately, a lot of this is just going to kind of be talking through it, because we don't have an oven for those steps. So Shelly, we have some chickpeas here. We're using just canned chickpeas, and we drained and rinsed them already. And they're pretty well dry. They've been there for a while, but blotting them with a paper towel is sometimes helpful to get as much moisture off of them as possible. I'm gonna just have you dump them on our cookie sheet here. Put them all out. And I've tried this a couple different ways, but I stumbled upon this idea last minute. You gotta bake them naked. So we're gonna pop them in the oven just like this, and with no oil, no spices, nothing on them. And you roast them like that for about 15 minutes in a 450-degree oven so that they start to crisp up a little bit. So a couple of issues. One, if you put oil on them first, the oil kind of absorbs into the chickpea and you don't get as much of a crunch. So we're kind of going for a crunch here. So you bake them for a while at 400, and then, since again we're going to put them in the oven, we're going to pretend they're roasted, but they're really not. So now you add your oil after they've been roasting for a little while. And you can use any type of oil you want. I'm going to use a tablespoon of olive oil. And I'm just going to, save some dishes. I'm just going to drizzle that all over the chickpeas. And just kind of stir it together. Make sure they're all evenly coated. You can kind of leave them in a heap. The next thing we're going to do is get our spice blend ready. So the first spice I'm actually gonna, since I have oil on mine, I'm gonna steal your measuring spoons. We're using a teaspoon of paprika. These are each half teaspoons. And then a 1/4 teaspoon each of chili powder, cumin, and coriander. So the paprika and the chili powder, capsaicin would probably be the most notable, I guess, chemical or compound in those. And it's really good for metabolism. A lot of people claim that that spice, that heat, capsaicin, helps speed up your metabolism. The cumin is a good source of iron, and also people believe that it helps
with weight loss.
Weight loss, yeah. So,
that's good, yeah.
Yeah. And coriander, some evidence that it might help reduce blood sugar, that it's good for your skin, and also foodborne illness prevention. So, you know.
Yeah, and I've heard that people use that for like acid reflux or anything like that. It helps with that. So
yeah, and we are adding a little bit of salt to this because again, this is like a snack. So we're adding a 1/4 teaspoon of salt there, and just mixing it together. What's your favorite spice? Like if you had a go-to spice in your pantry?
So basically what's out here, like we use that almost every day, but not just one in particular. I use a mix of everything. So they're kind of, I have a little box, I guess you would call it, and I have the spices all in them. I take that out every time I cook an Indian meal, and I use basically everything that's in there. So
that's awesome.
Yeah.
Because all of the different spices have different health benefits. So if you can use multiple spices every day.
And they add a different flavor, you know, each adds a different flavor, so.
And to start out with, you might, you know, so you might not be used to the flavor of the spices. So maybe starting with, you know, 1 or 2 at a time and deciding what you like. And starting with a little bit less spice and working your way up is also a good method for getting used to that spice flavor. And that's the fun, so Indian food is probably my favorite ethnic cuisine. I've never tried any Indian food that I didn't like. And I think the reason why I like it is because each time it's a new experience. It's something I haven't tried before, different flavors. So
and that's why people ask me all the time, you know, being a vegetarian, you don't miss meat, you know, but there's so much you can do with all these, you know, other things that I don't think I miss it. You know, we have different meals every day almost, so there's very versatile, and you can use things in different ways. So
absolutely. So I'm just going to stir those up, make sure all of the spices are coating our chickpeas. And as you can see, I have foil on it. You don't have to have foil. But it does kind of help if any of the spices kind of get burned onto the chickpeas. It helps with cleanup a little bit. So I'm going to just kind of shake that out. And then you pop it back in the 450-degree oven for another 15 minutes or so. You can kind of you know, keep them in the oven for as long as it takes to get your desired crisp crunch level. So if you don't like it really crunchy, don't bake them as long, but if you like them really crunchy, then bake them a little bit longer. So storage wise, they're best right out of the oven. Like I could probably eat like this entire pan right out of the oven on my own. You know, better sharing it with somebody probably. Best right out of the oven. They will stay at room temperature for like a day. Longer than that, I'd probably refrigerate. We kept them at room temperature for a couple days because that's what the original recipe said, and it wasn't so good. You could tell that it was really starting to deteriorate after about a day. When you refrigerate them, it is going to lose some of the crispness. You can kind of crisp them back up in the oven if you wanted to, but I would eat them right away. Yeah. So.
They say there is strength in numbers. In Bryan, we have always taken pride in supporting our Golden Bear student athletes in all of their sporting endeavors. The Bryan Athletic Boosters now have a chance for you to get into the game. If you're Bryan proud, it's time to become Bryan strong. Whether you were a BHS athlete, are raising a BHS athlete, or just love supporting our Bryan High School athlete, this is your chance to be part of the BHS sporting community. Talk to any board member today on how easy it is to join, or contact us at 419-636-4536.
One thing that hasn't changed here at Bryan Ford Lincoln is our commitment to service. It's in everything we do. It's in our mission statement. Our goal is simple: customers for life. Kick back in our newly renovated service lounge or business center. We pick up and deliver throughout the local area at no charge. So the next time you need service on your Ford or competitive make vehicle, come out and see us at Bryan Ford Lincoln and see why we've earned Ford Motor Company's President's Award 7 times running.
Keeping children safe on Ohio school buses is a priority for the Ohio State Highway Patrol. This is Lieutenant Bob Ashenfelder of the Defiance Post. Safety on the roadway is a shared responsibility. Even though motorists are required to stop as a safety measure, children should always look both ways before crossing the street and remain alert to any sudden traffic changes. Together, we can make this a safe school year.
For over 40 years, Bryan, Ohio has been home to the only import vehicle repair specialist in Northwest Ohio, Suburban Auto. Whether it's an Asian or European vehicle, Suburban has the knowledge and experience to keep your import or domestic car running strong. Do you have a hybrid vehicle that's acting up? Suburban is your one-stop hybrid repair shop. Don't be fooled by the one-size-fits-all repair shops. There is no substitute for experience. Come see the import repair pros, Suburban Auto.
Here at the Williams County Veteran Service Office, our mission is plain and simple. We are here to serve our local Williams County veterans and their dependents. We are staffed with trained service officers who have the compassion and understanding to assist their fellow veterans in obtaining all federal and state benefits that they have earned. Additionally, we provide emergency financial assistance and transportation to VA medical centers. So if you're a veteran or a dependent of a veteran, stop in today and see how we can help you at the Williams County Veteran Service Office.
Last year, over 390 people in Ohio were killed because someone chose to get behind the wheel impaired. This is Lieutenant Bob Ashenfelder of the Ohio State Highway Patrol's Defiance Post. As part of the patrol's ongoing effort to contribute to a safer Ohio, troopers will continue an increased focus on impaired driving arrests in 2018. But we can't fight this battle on our own. We need your commitment to plan ahead by designating a sober driver or call for a ride. If you drink, don't drive.
BMU high-speed internet is now cheaper than ever. Now just $30 a month, that's $100 a year in savings. Get it with BMU Extended Basic Cable for all your sports, movies, and reality shows. Plus local programming, including high school sports and community events. Not to mention a local help desk and support team for when you need them. Now for the fine print. We don't have any. No contracts or hidden fees. Call BMU today at 419-633-6100 or visit us on the web at cityofbryan.net.
All right, let's move on to our next recipe, our beverage. And I was pre-cooking some rice before the show. I'm just gonna kind of check on it. Looks like it's gonna be perfect actually. Right when we need it, I think it's gonna be ready. So I couldn't have timed that better. So let's get started on our milk. I'm gonna turn on our heat. And if you wanna just go ahead and pour the milk in, you can really use any type of milk for this recipe. We're just using basic 2% milk. You can use any fat content. You can use plant-based milks. You could use almond, soy, coconut, whatever you want to use. Anything will work. So we're just gonna kind of lightly heat our milk. You want it to be warm, but not boiling.
Okay.
So of course, this is Live It Spiced, so we are going to add a spice blend to this. Now this, again, and like your mother-in-law said, she drinks this every day, not this exact blend.
Right.
But, and I drink it frequently too, so to make up this spice blend every single time I want to drink this beverage, you don't really want to be doing that.
Right.
So I like to make it up in advance. So I'm going to use quite a bit of spice in here. We're not going to add that all to our 1 cup of milk. We're going to add about well, it depends how spicy you like something, but anywhere from 1/4 to 1 teaspoon of spice per cup of milk. So I have a teaspoon of turmeric, this beautiful golden spice. That's what makes it golden milk, is our turmeric. And then I'm going to add a tablespoon of cinnamon. And really the measurements don't have to be exact. It doesn't really matter. We're just kind of making our blend up here. And then I have a tablespoon of cardamom and a tablespoon of ginger. So one of the reasons this beverage is really great, especially like after a meal or in the evening, two of the spices in here, ginger and cardamom, are really good for upset stomachs or digestion. So, you know,
we use those a lot in like tea. You know, the tea tastes really good if you add
just like
those.
a regular, like a herbal type of tea. Yeah. So I'm going to give those a quick stir. So I just store this blend in like an airtight glass container in your spice basket, you know, and label it. This mixture is also really good in like a pumpkin or squash soup. Like I'll make a curry pumpkin squash soup with it, or sprinkled on applesauce even. It'd be really good. So, you know, the reason I like this recipe is it's a really efficient way to get spices every single day if you wanted it. Like this is something that you could do every single day. And you're getting your turmeric, cinnamon, cardamom, ginger, which all have the benefits.
Of all.
So turmeric has tons of benefits.
Oh yes. Anti-inflammatory. It's used, you know, like I said, with cough, congestion. You know, if you come down with the flu, or you have just a head cold or something like that, you can always just get warm milk and put a teaspoon of turmeric and mix it up and drink it. So
yeah, which actually I'll do that too as a beverage. You know, I'll skip the rest of the spices and maybe just do turmeric in warm milk. I've seen some evidence on people like taking it for pain relief.
Yeah.
Like instead of an ibuprofen.
Yes, I've had patients actually that take pill form.
Right.
And they actually have seen, you know, instead of using pain medication or ibuprofen or, you know, any of those anti-inflammatories, they'll use that for pain control, and it's worked for them. So
yeah, and like we kind of discussed, like whether it's the placebo or whether it's actually working.
Yeah, I mean, it's known to have that anti-inflammatory effect. So I think, you know, it probably does work. Just reducing that inflammation, you know, all over the body. So,
but if you think it's working, then that's just as beneficial, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
So I'm going to add a half teaspoon to our milk here. Yep, and we have a whisk over here. I'll just let you go ahead and whisk it in. We're adding a couple more things as well. We're going to add a little bit of honey. This is optional. If you don't want it to be sweet, it doesn't have to be sweet. Don't add honey.
Right.
You can add more or less depending on your taste. You can experiment with different sweeteners, like if you wanted to use stevia or like a monk fruit extract, something like that, a non-nutritive sweetener, that's fine too. I'm not going to measure. I'm just going to squeeze a little bit in there. Honey's messy to measure.
Yeah.
And then the other thing, this is kind of an odd ingredient, but it has a purpose. So, and I prefer coconut oil in this. So we're adding a fat to this recipe. And I'm choosing coconut oil today because I like the flavor of it, and I think it blends really well with the spices. Coconut oil has a definite flavor. You don't need a lot. We actually use 2% milk today, so you wouldn't necessarily have to since the milk has fat in it. But there's two things that help the absorption of the active ingredient in turmeric. The active ingredient in turmeric is called curcumin. And fat and black pepper actually help increase the absorption of that compound into your body. So anytime you're using turmeric, you want to make sure that that recipe has a little bit of fat and a little bit of black pepper in it. I mean, you don't need like large quantities of fat by any means, but just a little bit will help your body to absorb it.
That's good to know. I didn't know that. So.
And that's why sometimes you'll see supplements actually that contain black pepper, and they'll contain a little bit of fat like in the capsule of the turmeric. So in there. Okay. All right, so that looks really good. We're gonna let it, I'll turn my heat up a little bit. Yeah, like I said, you don't need it to boil. You just want it to be kind of warm. Again, that nice, warm, relaxing beverage. If you are using dairy milk, you know, everybody knows the old wives' tale of like warm milk before bed helps you sleep
better, yeah.
So I think it's just, you know, the perfect bedtime beverage.
My goal is to get my kids to drink this. They won't have anything to do with it.
I don't think my kids would drink it either. And that says a lot. I mean, you use a lot of Indian spices.
Yeah.
And I use some spices with my kids. But I do not think that they would drink this.
Yeah, they eat a lot of spices, but they're usually in meat. You know, I mean, it's in the food.
Right.
They will never just drink this straight.
Right.
Never. So that's my goal.
Someday, I'm sure that they will. You have 3 kids, you said?
3, yes.
And your youngest is 2. How old are your other kids?
9 and 7.
All right.
So.
Lots of attitude at those ages.
Oh yes,
right?
and both girls. So.
Oh my goodness.
A lot.
So as you can see, it's a really pretty, can you see it in the audience? It's a really pretty golden color. So we're gonna pretend like we're on like a little talk show here, and we're gonna
enjoy
our little beverage as we cook our rice. So, all right, let's taste it. Cheers.
Cheers.
And then we're gonna have like yellow tongues for the rest of the show. So, perfect.
And I think the honey taste is really, I mean,
Yeah.
it adds flavor to it, so I
Right.
think it's...
Okay, so let's get started on the rice. And like I said, I already had some rice cooking, so this is gonna go pretty quickly as we go here. So I'm gonna have you grab the skillet down there. And we'll just double check that our rice is all, I'm gonna have you, can I borrow your spoon down there as well? I'm gonna check our rice and make sure that everything looks good. Perfect. The lid off real quick. Okay, so with this rice, the first, again, it's gonna move kind of quickly, so I'm gonna talk about it a little bit before we get started. Basically, we're gonna add some garlic and some spices to some oil. We're gonna mix in some vegetables. We're gonna add some more spices, and then we're gonna stir in our rice, and that's it.
And it's done, yep.
And it's done, pretty much.
Super easy.
Yeah, it's a really,
Easy.
So thank you so much for providing an easy recipe. I think that's one of the biggest things for people coming to Live It. We want things that are quick and easy, not things that take forever. Which I've tried to do some Indian foods at home, and I always feel like there's a lot of spices, and a lot of times they're really labor intensive to make. I mean, obviously you do more Indian cooking than I do. Do you find that a lot of them are labor intensive, or?
Not really, because I don't know, maybe because I've been doing it for so long that it's just natural for me. But I guess if you weren't doing it all, that they could be very, you know, I guess if you look at a recipe, it might be overwhelming, you know.
Right.
But if you cook it often, I think it gets easier, and then you can kind of adjust the spices based on your taste as well. So I think it comes easy as you make it.
The other thing that can be kind of scary with Indian food, or in an Indian recipe, you look at the recipe and there's a lot of times a lot of spices, and some of them you don't know what they are, or they're spice blends.
Right.
Like garam masala.
Right. And it's basically, they give that name. It's basically, I can tell you that all the spices that we have here, usually it's a blend of all of them. But they might have one ingredient over the other, it's just the balance of it all.
Yeah.
And then they can call it, based on, what they're going to use it for. So I don't think there's anything to be scared about, and I think they're all natural and herbal, so I don't think people have to really worry that they might
I think
hurt
sometimes
themselves
people are just intimidated when they see ingredients that they're unfamiliar with.
Right?
Yeah.
But yeah, usually they're pretty safe.
Absolutely, and good for you.
Yeah.
Not only safe, but excellent for your body to use. So,
And you
right.
can use more or less based on
Yep.
your taste, so that's, you know, you don't always have to go by the recipe. You can always use a little less if you don't like a lot
Or
of spice.
omit, you know, a particular spice if it's not one that you really care for.
Right, skip it, you know.
Uh-huh. Yeah. So we're going to get our heat going here. And I'm just not even going to measure my oil. I'm just going to add a little bit of olive oil to the pan. Just a tiny bit more. This is your recipe. I should have you, you do it.
It's okay, I'll let you do it.
So we have two ingredients that we're going to add first, and they're seeds. We have mustard seed and cumin seed. Most of us are familiar with cumin powder. But this is the exact same thing, except
It's in the seed
ground
form,
up.
yeah, so that's ground, yeah.
Yep. And so what do you think is the benefit of using these seeds in the
I
recipe?
think it's just the taste of it, and it's the base of all Indian food. They usually use mustard seeds and cumin seeds.
Okay. So you said, so I'm adding just a half teaspoon of each, and as you can see, they're kind of like sizzling.
You want me to mix it?
Sure, I'll let you mix it. Or, yeah, you can mix it.
Go ahead, you can.
And then I'm going to use just a half teaspoon of the mustard seed. And you actually said the mustard seed like pop.
They do, they splatter, so you want to just make sure that you have something that you can
Okay.
cover.
Oh, there it
See?
goes. They're popping. And then, so you start with the seeds.
Yep, and you get kind of, you can even smell it once they start cooking a little, and then you can add your,
They smell awesome. And then the garlic.
Garlic, yep.
So I have some chopped garlic there. And you don't cook it long.
no, you don't want to burn the
Yep.
garlic. Unless you like it, I guess, burnt, but I don't.
Probably not as good for you burnt either. So, and then we're going to use just a frozen mixed vegetable that we already have thawed. We have 1 cup of that.
And you can, I mean, this is totally up to you. Whatever vegetables you like, you can add, you know.
We just have like it's just the basic like corn, peas, green beans, carrots. There's some lima beans in there. So just your basic run-of-the-mill mixed vegetable that you get at your grocery store.
Yeah.
And our flame went out. Okay. So you just let that cook for a few minutes, and in the meantime, you add your spices. So you add your turmeric. So we'll add, how much should we add? I'll let you, you add it. You show me what you add.
All right.
Because
So this is what, half a teaspoon?
Yeah.
I don't measure, so this is a half a teaspoon that I'm going to put in. And you can add more if you like, add less if you don't. So,
And then,
then I need this.
oh shoot, so we have turmeric and then also cumin powder.
Cumin powder, yeah.
And then do you do both cumin and coriander?
I have a mix of them both.
Okay.
So they're both mixed together.
Okay.
And that's how they come. I get it from India, so.
I asked her where she got her spices, and she's like, from India. So, but actually, you can get all these spices locally. So,
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, so
Which is good.
Yeah. So you don't have to be intimidated.
And I'm adding another half a teaspoon
Okay.
of the cumin and the coriander
And that's what
powder.
I was going to say. Do, a little bit of each. And with the turmeric, I found that it was, kind of fairly spicy. I think it depends on the quality of turmeric you have as well. The more fresh it is, the more spicy it's going to be. This is, does anybody know what this is? I brought this in from home so you could all see it. This is the turmeric root. So this is a fresh root. It's actually kind of squishy right now because it was frozen in my freezer. So I was able to find this at a Meijer in Michigan, and you want to see a dietitian happy? Like send them to a store with whole turmeric root. So I stocked up on it. It was actually very reasonable in price. I bought a whole bag for like less than $2. And I brought them home, washed them, put them in my freezer, and then if you wanted to use fresh, you could like either grate it in there.
Yep.
I will throw a whole root into a smoothie. Or like an extraction. I make like I make juices with like herbs and
all the mix.
Spices and things like that, and throw a whole turmeric root in there. So, but that's a whole turmeric root. That's what it looks like. Which is my personal favorite way to use it because it's fresh.
Right.
Like you can't fake a fresh
My mom
turmeric
would be
root.
really happy with that because I don't use it and you do.
Okay.
She probably would be really happy.
They're hard to find. So if you find it, even if you're not sure you're going to use it, buy some. Put it in your freezer and then come to me and we'll talk about ways to use it. So we're adding 2 cups of basmati rice, which is a long grain rice.
Longer grain rice.
Yep. And we actually were able to find a brown rice, and Michelle's like, come on, we use white rice. I do. Leave it to the dietitian to, you know, put a spin on your authentic Indian dish. So we're using a brown basmati, and then you just basically mix it all together just until everything's evenly coated in the spices, and then you're all done. Pretty much.
Yep.
So that looks amazing, it smells amazing, and I got a lot of thumbs up around the room that people liked these recipes today. So
That's good.
I know they're a little bit different. You might not be used to these spices, but I'd encourage you to, you know, pick one and give it a try. So
Yep, and always go milder, right?
yes,
If you don't
go less if
go
you're
less
in doubt.
and then kind of
Work your way up.
Yep.
Well, thank you so much, Michelle, for joining me
for
today.
having
It
me.
was so much fun having you
Yes.
here. And thank you to our audience members for joining us today. Does anybody have any questions for me or our spice expert?
I guess.
She's on the ball with these spices, so.
Thanks.
I'm like looking at my papers, like, what are they good for? You know your spices.
No questions?
Thank you, guys. Thanks, everyone.